Hey guys, so in today's video we're going to talk about how to harmonize a major scale and also a minor scale. And basically what that means is how we get chords or triads from the scale. So what we get from a C major scale is we start on C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now each of those notes represents a scale degree like we talked about before. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what I've written down here are the chords for each letter. So down here is the alphabet again, the C major scale. Now going up, I've put the chords. So basically, we're skipping every other letter of the scale to get our chords. So we're doing triads right now, okay? 3-note chords. So it's 1, 3, 5 of the C major scale. So the notes are C, E, G, and that's our 1 chord, C, E, G. Now the D chord would be D, F, A, because we're going to skip over those letters. So we have D, F, A written down here, okay? D, F, A. And same with E, E, G, B is written down here. So I've gone through all 7 chords and showing you what the notes are that make up these chords in a C major scale. So the next thing we want to think about is understanding that if I go from C to E, we have a major third. So C to E in the chord, we have a major third. And then also C to G would be a fifth, perfect fifth, okay? But we really want to focus on this third right now because if we go to the 2 chord, which is D, from D to F is a minor third, not a major third. So this is actually a smaller interval like we talked about before. So basically from D to F, we have a minor third. So that actually makes the chord minor. So the 2 chord in a major key is going to be minor. So DFA is actually a D minor chord. Same thing with E. The 3 chord is also minor. E to G is a minor third. So E, G, B, this is going to be an E minor chord. So we have a formula that we can use on any major scale that helps us to remember what qualities of chords are in each scale. So this formula applies to any major scale regardless of how many sharps or flats are in it. In the key of C we have no sharps or flats. So the formula is going to mean this. So the 1 chord is a major. Okay, so we just put a Roman numeral 1 and that means that the 1 chord is a major triad. Then the 2 chord is minor, so we draw lowercase. Okay, so that's actually going to be D minor now. So we're going to turn that into D minor. The 3 chord is also minor, so we're going to call that E minor, okay? The 4 chord is major. The 5 chord is also major, but we have something special about the 5 chord that we're going to talk about later. That's called the dominant chord. So we're just going to put a 7 here right now, and we'll get to that later on. Then the 6 chord is minor. Okay, so that's A minor. And then if we call this G7 for now also, but basically the B chord, the 7 chord, is the only unique chord on here that we're going to call diminished. So basically, this is the formula for any major scale. So the 1 chord is always major, 2 chord is always minor, 3 chord is minor. The 4 and 5 chords are both major, but this one has an extra note in it, which is the 7th note. So basically what that means is if a chord has, like a triad would be C, E, G, well, if we skip over 1 more, we get to B. So that would be the 7th note of that scale. So what this implies is we have a 7th note in G, which is F, right? Because if we go G, B, D, the next one's going to be F. Okay, so we'll explain that in more detail later. I just want you to kind of understand. But for right now, we're just thinking about triads, keeping it real simple. So that means if I were to change the key signature from a C major scale to a different type of scale, these would still apply to that scale. So let's try it with the key of G. So to figure out the diatonic chords for the key of G, we're just going to write out the scale first. So we have G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And then the key of G has 1 sharp, which is F. So basically what this means is in the key of G, the chords that we call diatonic to that key are going to be G major, A minor, B minor, C major, we call D7 or D major, and then we have E minor, and then F sharp diminished. So those are all the chords in the key of G major. So if you're writing a song, this is very useful information because these chords fit into the scale of G, so or the key of G. So basically, we could have a song that uses these chords. So we could say the song goes like, well, we go from G, and then we're going to go to E minor, and then we're going to go to C, and then we're going to go to A minor, for example. So I just picked these random chords here out of the key of G to to show you that we can write a song or a chord progression with just 4 chords. We could even use less chords if we want, but 4 chords is pretty common. So just understanding that all of these chords fit into the key of G. Now we could also use chords that are outside the scale or outside the key, but for right now we just want to understand how they work in terms of the scale and what are the proper chords in that key. Okay, and we want to know that we can actually do the same thing with a minor scale as well, or a minor key. So if we think of A minor, not A major, but A minor, which comes from C major, we can apply all the same ideas to this scale. We just have to think of the Roman numerals starting from 1 on A. So what that would mean is 1's going to be minor. Now 2 is actually going to be diminished in a minor key, because that, if you're in the key of C major, that was the 7th, which was diminished. So just think of the key of C, but that's now the 2, so it's diminished. It's a little more complicated, but basically it's the same chords as if you were in the key of C major, but now we're calling this 1. So we're just really thinking of chord qualities right now. So we have 1 is minor, okay, 2 is diminished, 3 is going to be major, and then 4 is going to be minor, 5 is going to be minor, and then the 6 is going to be major, and the 7 is also going to be major, but if you remember in the key of C, the G was a 7, so we're actually going to call this a 7th, okay, which is our dominant chord. So we'll talk about that later, but basically we want to understand now that in a minor key, so this is A minor, that's the 1 chord, okay, the 2 chord is B diminished, 3 chord is C, 4 chord is D minor, 5 chord is E minor, 6 chord is F major, and the 7 chord is G7. So this is basically how you harmonize a minor scale. However, the 1 chord that we tend to change is the 5 chord. So in the key of A minor, the 5 chord is E minor diatonically. However, a lot of times in music, we decide to turn this into a major chord, actually a dominant 7 chord, like this one. So basically, a very common alteration here is to make the 5 chord a dominant 7 chord, just like in a major key. So it would actually be E7, not E minor. And this creates what we call the harmonic minor scale, but we'll talk about that later, okay? Just understand that in a minor key, we also like to make the 5 chord a dominant 7 chord. So that basically sums up how to understand basic triads within a major or a minor scale, and how those chords fit into the scale, and how you harmonize the whole scale. Later we'll talk about 7 chords, and we can actually turn each of these into a type of 7 chord. But right now we just want to understand the basics of the triads, so when we start writing songs, we can take these simple chords and put them together like this. So say we have A minor, which is the 1 chord, then we're going to go to G. We could go to G7, we could also go to G major, but let's call it G7. Then we're going to go to F major, okay? Then we're going to go to E7, okay? And this is a pretty common progression you'll see in music that's used a lot. So you might see the chords written this way, or you might see it just written like this with just regular G. But basically these chords come directly from the chords of the scale. We just put them in a particular order. This is what we call a scale-wise progression, because we're going in order of the scale. We're going backwards, but we're going A to G to F to E. So we're going backwards on the scale over and over again, so we call it a scale-wise progression. But in songwriting, there are many options with different chord progressions, and we'll learn more about that later.